So, our main story. The deal is done. The focus now returns to the UK. Cabinet ministers will be free to campaign whichever way they see fit once the referendum date is set, which we understand is going to be a bit later today. But even before the Prime Minister left Brussels in the middle of the night, there was no denying campaigning had really already started, with his critics arguing the concessions he secured just don't go far enough. We're joined now in the studio by UKIP's Deputy Leader, Paul Nuttall. You will obviously be campaigning for Britain to leave the EU. I mean, you'd be criticising what he came back with, whatever he came back with, but you've got to admit, I mean, he's done rather better in these negotiations than many people, including yourselves, expected, hasn't he?
Well, regardless of whether he got a ban or a break on in-work migrant benefits or a ban on child benefit, look, it doesn't really matter. These are peripheral issues. These aren't the issues which the people, the British people, get excited about when it comes to Europe. I mean, he didn't go in there and talk about reducing our membership fee of £55 million a day. He didn't really talk about any change to freedom of movement of people. He didn't get one single law transferred back to Britain. He did nothing about common fisheries or the common agricultural policy. Look, this was thin gruel. It was a very narrow renegotiation, and he didn't even get what he wanted there. I'm sorry, it just isn't good enough, and I'm pretty confident now that the Leave side will gain momentum.
But he's going to have it written into EU treaties that Britain is not going to have to be forced into any political integration, that we are exempt from closer political union. You've said that's inevitable, that we're going to be dragged in. That takes some wind out of your sails, doesn't it?
Well, let me tell you this, and this is something which wasn't spoken about last night. The European Parliament will have the ability, after the referendum, if we vote to remain, to rip up this renegotiation or indeed alter it. So what people will be voting
on... They wouldn't do that, would they?
Well, hang on, I sit in the European Parliament, and I'm telling you now that the European Parliament is no friend of Britain. When I stand up and give speeches, for example, sometimes I have other MEPs shouting, "Leave, go." They're no friends of Britain. They may well rip this renegotiation up after a referendum. So people will be voting blind, possibly on June the 23rd.
But if they know, those MEPs, that all the leaders, the prime ministers and presidents from all those countries have unanimously agreed to this deal, it's highly unlikely that the European Parliament would rip it up.
Well, we just don't know. I mean, that's hypothetical, isn't it? But equally at the same time, I'm not going to talk about us remaining in the European Union. I believe that we will leave, because if we leave, we'll be able to control our borders once again and have the ability to say who we want and who we don't want to come and work in this country. We'll be able to save that £55 million every single day. And let's not forget, over half our laws are now made in Brussels, not by elected MEPs, but by a European Commission that meets in secret. That is un-British, it's undemocratic, and I don't think the British people will stand for it.
You are campaigning already, but let's talk about your campaign, the Leave campaign, because it's confusing, isn't it? All these different groups, all these different lobbying organisations. You've got to get your act together now. It could be just a few months away. I mean, who's going to lead it? Who's going to be in it? What's it going to be called? I mean, you've got a lot of work to do.
Well, of course, I mean, there's been problems in the past. No one can deny that. It's now time for us to put our differences aside, do away with personalities, because you know what? The future of this country is worth more than that. And there's an organisation out there called Grassroots Out. Go held a massive rally last night in the QE2 Centre in Westminster. I think you showed it earlier. That, I hope, will be the umbrella group that everyone can get behind, and then we'll go on and win this referendum.
Michael Gove apparently joining the Leave campaign, we understand. Yeah. Boris Johnson going to be with you?
Boris seems to flirt a lot and make nice noises. I think, in the end, if Boris does join, it will be a great benefit for us in this campaign. Come on, Boris, you know, put your country before your career, get off the fence and come and join the Leave campaign.
You're smiling there about a referendum maybe in June, but you're going to lose a bit of money in this, aren't you? Just explain.
Well, I have a bet on with Nigel Farage at the moment. I predicted that it would be next March. He predicted it would be this June. Unfortunately, I think he's going to win, and it's going to cost me a bit of money.
Paul Nuttall, thank you very much indeed.